Steal $100 from me? I'll steal $80,000 from you. In the third grade I was an awkward kid. I had an abusive father, and I struggled to fit in and make friends. Derek was one of my classmates. He regularly took part in bullying me, but one day he seemed to change, and he was being nice to me. After being deprived of kindness or attention so regularly, I fell for it. He hung out with me during recess when I was usually alone. We laughed and talked about girls we like. He even apologized for being a jerk to me. Turns out the only reason he was nice to me was because I had brought a very popular, expensive Batman action figure to school with me to pass the time. I saved my allowance and mowed lawns for 2 months to buy that toy. Everyone wanted one. By the end of the day he asked me if he could lend the action figure. Like the naive, socially inept kid I was, I trusted him with it. The deal was to return it the following morning. I went home happy, and completely fooled. I didn't suspect a thing. The following day he completely ignored me. When I tried to talk to him he acted like I was crazy. When I asked him to return the action figure he simply said, "You never gave me that toy, maybe you imagined it," and when I persisted he threatened to beat me up. When I complained to my teacher I was told that it was my own fault for bringing toys to school. I was afraid they would involve my father, so I dropped it. If my father knew, it would only make my life at home worse. The next day, I thought my life was over. Derek had told all the girls that I had a crush on them, and said that I wanted to do weird things to them. I was a social outcast before that, but at least I was tolerated. After his smear campaign with the girls, I was a monster. Nobody would look me in the eyes, not even the teachers. Kids started throwing stones at me, vandalized my property, and I couldn't do anything about it. I was just a weak-willed kid after all. I had nobody to run to. After a while the bullying died down, and I focused on my studies. I actually started getting good grades. Derek tried talking to me again, but I ignored him completely. Sometimes he would repeat, "Why are you being such a baby? You didn't give me anything, you imagined it." I couldn't care less about what he had to say. By the end of the year we moved houses and I transferred to another school not far away. Things were much better there. I finally had friends, so I was not as easily targeted. Over the years, I became somewhat of a delinquent, and in high school I got into regular fights. I may have been overcompensating for my younger years. I bartended in nightclubs, hotels, and cruise liners in my early 20s. This helped me a lot to be more socially adept and to understand social dynamics and human nature. I finished trade school and qualified as an electrician and later as a plumber. I started my own business, developed a reputation for excellent workmanship in my local area, and did well for myself. When I was 29, I received a call out at 2 a.m. for a flooding emergency at a local residence. When I got there the place was a mess. Water was jetting out of a burst pipe and electrical equipment was shorted. It was highly dangerous. The living room floor was caved in due to a sinkhole. I was met by the wife, Jane. She was hysterical and beside herself. Somehow, she believed she was responsible, which I found odd. I assured her that it couldn't possibly be her fault. He arrived not 5 minutes later. His demeanor was irate. He didn't greet or shake my hand when I offered, but I recognized him immediately. It was Derek. He demanded to know why I have not begun fixing the issue yet. I told him what I'd told the wife in terms of costs, but I hid the written quote in my vehicle. I told him who I was and acted happy to see him, and assured him that he was in good hands. After a while of arguing with his wife he seemed to calm down and joked around with me. I knew I had fooled him. We talked about our careers, kids, school days, and I gave him tips and fake recommendations. We got along great. His trust was easy to gain. He must have thought of me as a complete sucker. I assured him that he was in good hands and this would be fixed in no time. I was careful not to start any actual work on the property. Doing the smallest thing would make me responsible for all of it. Derek left after an hour or so and his wife stayed behind. I started my revenge. When I was doing my assessment I noticed that most of the buildings did not comply with city regulation and did not adhere to the registered and approved plans. There were multiple safety hazards and all plumbing and electrical work were completed by unqualified people in an attempt to save money. Also, the pipe in question had been leaking for a few weeks at least, getting worse by the day and finally causing disaster. Their water bill would be astronomical at the end of the month unless a qualified plumber endorsed a rebate with the municipality. I called my contact at the city, Donovan, and notified him of all the regulatory violations, safety hazards and non-city compliant installations on the property. I also told him of the possible water bill. He promised to be there the next day. I immediately started photographing and documenting. The following morning my contact was there at 10 a.m. He had a field day. He informed Derek's wife of the calamity that was to come. They would be forced to tear down all the building additions, remove all the uncertified plumbing and wiring installations, have the plans reapproved, and start from scratch. An estimated loss of approximately $950,000. Derek was there in minutes. He was beside himself. He threatened legal action, but Donovan simply told him that he had more than enough photograph evidence to have the property declared invalid within a week if Derek did not comply in writing. Donovan reminded Derek that he does this for a living and that the city has more pressing issues. I left Derek an invoice for my time just to smear salt in the wound and took my leave. Later he called me and called me every name under the sun. I remained silent and he hung up. He went on a Facebook rant about me, which backfired hard on him. Apparently, Derek has been a jerk since middle school, and most of the community knew that. They were quick to back me up, some people even sharing their experiences with Derek being horrible. One day he called me and asked to meet. He sounded defeated and depressed, so I decided to meet and see what's up. I met him at a local convenience store. I knew better than to take Derek's words at face value, and when he laid his phone screen down on the table, I knew he was recording the conversation. He apologized for his behavior, which surprised me, and told me that he was going to end up filing for bankruptcy. He said he took out a loan for the building additions and cut corners to save money. He showed me the water bill, which was nearly $80,000. This was a problem that I, being a certified plumber, could erase with a signature. But I refused. He was shocked. Then he asked me, "Why did you do this to me? I know I was a jerk to you when we were kids, but I don't deserve to have my life ruined because of mistakes I made when I was a kid. What kind of person are you? You told me I was in good hands, I trusted you, you assured me you would help me, then you stabbed me in the back. You quoted me only a few hundred and told me not to worry. I said no such thing." I replied. Derek responded, "Stop lying. You told me that it would cost a few hundred, maybe less. I heard you say it. You promised to help me, gave me recommendations. Why are you doing this to me? You must have imagined it." I looked him in the eye as I repeated the same thing he said to me 20 years ago. "You're being a baby, I never quoted you for anything, you imagined it." He knew I was destroying him financially because of a Batman action figure he stole from me 20 years ago. I could see it in his eyes, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. His expression was a mixture of astonishment and disgust. I looked him dead in the eyes for a few seconds, then got up and left. I slept like a baby that night, and had a goofy smile all week after. He tried calling a few times, but sent him a text stating that further harassment will be met with legal action. Derek, if you ever hear this, just know the look of despair on your face when you realize why you were being ruined was delicious. The only thing I feel sorry about is that your wife is stuck with a deadbeat like you. If she's smart, she'll leave you and your crappy lifestyle behind. Was that $100 Batman figure really worth $80,000?